What's up guys, this is Cher talking, welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'll be making a full review for the Romancing Festival Gustave banner that brings Gustave as a multi-purpose tank that can do some good damage and decreases damage taken for spells by quite a lot. Cordelia, a piercing code specialist that can give OG points to the party. Johan, a slash and sometimes pierce damage dealer that relies on block and evade to keep using overdrive attacks. And Will, support for Club Remembrance that can also give special effects to fire attackers. Let's start talking about Gustave. He gives it into the banner, but it's actually a tie between Johan and Gustave as the best ones. He has 131% SGR for some good damage and 122% endurance and Will, very above average values to decrease damage taken. Low agility, but that doesn't really matter. Well, Gustave activates many effects for the party. For example, 40% damage increase at all times, and 30% damage reduction in all times too. Now, if you are hit by any of the elemental attacks, you decrease damage taken by 30. But if the elemental attack has both, for example, heat and cold, then you're going to decrease it twice by 30% multiplicatively, so this can actually be very useful for when you are also using the formation called it Elemental Shutter. So Gustave is kind of like a portable Elemental Shutter of sorts. Now, he does have 30% damage reduction at all times to himself, starts the fight with 12 to use his best skill, has 6 BP per turn, buffs all surviving allies STR and Will by 20%, very useful because will protect you from spells, but also especially versus debuffs and ailments. He then applies this effect that will allow you to receive up to 3 BP when being hit, 1 BP per hit. So if the enemy uses a single target attack, only one character gets BP, but if it uses, for example, 3 AoEs in a turn, everyone gets 3 BP. Very useful and can be used as a BP battery depending on the fight. He does have a heat up of 30% damage increase up to 5 times per battle, so he can get up to 150% damage improvement, alongside the 40% that he already gets. That's 190 just from passives. He then always chases with 2 different skills. Skill number 1, that's called Rampage Slash. 2 hits of Slash and Blunt, E Power, and Critical versus Human. As you can see, Gustave is actually both Slash and Blunt damage specialist, and he also chases with Grant's Strike. That is a single target attack Slash and Blunt that before attacking grants the user a Slash attack boost and a Blunt attack boost that will improve the damage for those elements by 55% each as a command and 50% only if used as a chase. The attack has triple S power, but will feel more like a 4S power attack, and since he also chases with both Grant's Strike and Rampage Slash, they have both Slash and Blunt attack, the skills will benefit a lot from this and improve his own damage setup. Well, you have to see, but Gustave can actually be used as a damage dealer while still providing a lot of support. His support improves because of Iron Brave. It's a support fast skill that can only be used once, that will give 30% heat up for everyone, including himself, so he actually gives a total of 70% damage increase to the party. Then he buffs all surviving allies STR and Will by 50%. You can level this up to reach this max value, and an anti-magic Iron Wall 5 passive. That's why it's good to summon for Gustave, because this can be sent to a future version if they create. This will decrease damage taken again by 30% at all times, and if it's hit by a spell attack, it decreases by another 50%. You have to use Gustave in a fight to see how he decreases damage taken from spells to be like 100s, while the other attacks will be around 600s. That's right. But if you bring other people that can still improve your defenses, you can decrease damage from normal skills as well. But he is designed as a magical tank, and does not need to taunt, does not need anything. Everyone will be protected versus spell attacks. He can be even better if you want to just be a magical tank, if you have his tank version that has Steel Dominance. Steel Dominance will decrease damage from spells by another 35%, lasts for 2 turns, and do not stack. So if you have BP batteries, you can actually use his strong damage and then switch into Steel Dominance if you just want even extra protection, but that will probably be overkill. And no other inheritance really makes any sense with this character, because everything else is just in the way. And yeah, you should not inherit Let's Paint into him, because this makes him useless when attacking, and the extra attack and defense boosts are not so important in the game anymore. So Gustave is good as he is, and he is already doing damage. in being a support. For Great Swords, we got a lot of defensive units recently. He's not really needed on Remembrance fights, but he just makes them even easier. And since his damage is good, and he's still providing 70% damage increase for the party alongside multiple damage reduction, it's super easy to use him. You can slot him in any party, especially if you want to do damage versus enemies with choose Slash or Blunt. Gustave doesn't really have competition, I would say, but he fits easily in the squads that we're using, for example, Katarina, or squads that were using people like Duel, or people like Bertrand, but he also works well if you use him together with other one of those. So, very useful, and like I said, one of the best characters released recently, receives a 5 out of 5. Well, our next character will then be Johan. He is a very strong damage dealer, 135% SGR and 120% agility. This is because he really wants to attack the enemy before anyone else, because he can provide some extra damage, and just 90% endurance in will, but his gameplay does not want him to get hit, but more about that later. Starts the fight with 15 BP and gets himself 15 damage blocks. That's right, 15 with no turn limit. But there's more. He also grants himself Conceal, that gives him a 50% chance to evade as long as everyone is alive, alongside Intrinsic Sword 5 that gives him 30% damage increase, a 40% damage reduction when resisting, and a 37% chance to evade resisted attacks. We are talking about evasion here. He has two different evasions, much like Swift. If you remember, Swift barely gets hit because he has the same setup. Two different ways to evade, Conceal and Intrinsic. Now, you have both with Johan too, but much more damage. Besides, if no damage it was taken in that turn, he activates a lot of effects. For example, 12 BP. He already gets 3, so a total of 15 to keep using his skill number 3. He will then fill all of his Overdrive Gauge, and then he will restore the usage of skill number 3. Yeah, because skill number 3 can only use it once, and then he recharges because he didn't take damage. It's like a gimmick to actually allow Johan to be strong, but at the same time, it won't work in very, very long fights. But more about that later as well. Also, on the start of a turn, he grants all enemies weak point slash. So when you use slash attacks, he will apply a defense down, decreasing the defense to slash attacks only by 20%. And it lasts for 2 turns and will stack. So from turn 2 onwards, you're going to have even more improvement. He will attack multiple times with slash, so that will decrease the defense of the enemy while improving his own damage, because when he lands an attack, he also grants slash attack boost. That will improve slash damage by 50%, lasts for 2 turns, and stack. All of his attacks has at least slash, sometimes pierce. Now, he will always be using his skill number 3 in fights. Purple Shadow Strikes is a fast single target attack that costs 15 BP and hits 3 times with slash and pierce damage and B power. Each time you attack, you are going to apply a slash and pierce defense down. Each will decrease the type defense by 20%, so total of 60% per usage of this skill. It lasts for 2 turns and you can use this skill right after, so you can see that you can theoretically have 120% defense down for slash and 120% defense down for pierce, just by using Johan in your party. And other slash damage dealers will benefit from it, and pierce damage dealers as well. So each new hit of the B power attack will be improved. And nonetheless, after that, he will change with Shadowless Strike Plus, that will then apply slash defense down that decreases slash defense by 30. And lasts for 2 turns, will stack, and you can use it again on the next turn. Has a chance to poison and apply stealth to Johan, so that Johan will be less likely to be targeted. It helps him survive and not take damage at all. And then he's still going to chase again with a triple S power attack that is just slash. As you can see, all of his attacks have slash, so that they will benefit from the slash attack boost, and also all the slash defense downs that you can apply. His damage is hard to explain, but it's super strong. He deals more damage than Gustave if Gustave is using his skill tree all the time. And he blocks damage, but he does not offer party support. His damage will be very useful if you also have Kihachi. Remember that Kihachi first style has something called Laceration. Well, Laceration will improve the damage of both. If you have the Lightning Dwell Slash skill, you can apply Laceration for the whole fight, and then you have a 37% chance to apply Weak Defense down that decreases defense by 35. You can stack all of these effects, and Kihachi will be using 24 hits that benefits from Johan passive. So one will make the other one even stronger. And then you can burst some boss fights in 5 turns easily. And they will then be stronger if you want to use the lightning part of Kihachi, bring Madeline. And if you want to use her cold version, bring Farnews. And then you're going to do a lot of damage. Johan is pretty simple to explain. He will get into overdrive every turn. When I was using him, he never got hit for at least 8 turns, sometimes 10 turns. So in those fights, he will survive well. If he gets hit, his mechanic stops and he has to use either skill 1 or 2 that are very weak attacks. And, well, we should not even discuss this other setup, because if you got hit, you should reset. Then he does not need any inheritance skill from any of his past styles. Unless you want SaGa Train Journey from the latest one, that will give him another 4 damage blocks, and then you can use it twice. So it will extend his utility, but also sacrifices 16 BP. So he takes time to actually start doing damage. Nonetheless, Johan is a strong damage dealer, and you actually have to see him in action. I have released videos where I am using him. And he's another one that receives a 5 out of 5 by being so strong and fitting into many different squads with double elemental types. Moving on, the next one will be Cordelia, and she has 123% SGR and 102% endurance and will. As you can see, lower values, and she's actually more of a support and damage dealer. On the start of battle, she grants a chance for counter. This is a passive that will give you a 30% attack boost when you are hit, lasts for 2 turns, in stack, and no limit. You will also be buffing your endurance, will, love, and charisma by 20%, and give yourself 5 points of OG Gauge. So this passive is very useful for bosses that attack multiple times, and then you can buff your characters to reach high endurance and will, especially if the enemy does not buff break you. Okay, this is just for Cordelia, right? No, she can apply this to the whole party via use of skill number 2. For 9 BP, you have a fast support skill that will then buff will for everyone by 50% if you level up, and will apply chance counter for everyone. So everyone has this, and Cordelia actually has it twice, right? Because this says all surviving allies, no, all other surviving allies. She will then get a 60% attack boost, a 40% endurance will, love, and charisma, and then 10 points of OG Gauge when she gets hit. Enemies that attack multiple times can actually allow you to reach overdrive much faster, but more about that later. She also grants this crystal protection for everyone. If you use a recovery spell, each character of your party can trigger this only once. You and the target will get 5 EP. If it's an AoE skill, everyone gets. And you and the target will also get damage block for 2 times. If it's an AoE, everyone gets it. So it's not as good as Hannah's or Impress damage block systems, but it's something that works. But I don't know how many characters that have AoE heal will be in the party together with Cordelia. But for example, you can use Matriarch and use Heaven's Heal, and it will trigger the effect. Now, it's not as good as Brownie system, where Brownie can actually give you as much as you use when recovery actions are made, 5 EP. And Matriarch recharges her Heaven's Heal, meaning that every time she uses, she gives 5 EP to everyone. And you can still combo this with Leon. And Leon, when you use recovery spells, he then gives a 50% defense boost. So pretty nice setup, but limited on Cordelia when compared to others. Besides, when everyone is alive, she improves damage potential by 20% and reduces damage taken by 30%. If there is at least one character dead, or just 0 LP, you will then improve damage potential by 30 and reduce damage taken by 40. This is an interesting gimmick, especially because Cordelia wants to take Chiray's place in some squads, and if someone dies, you still have even better sustain. Chiray has a way to keep people alive and resurrect them easily, so you have something that is better than the normal Scrum Guard, that you lose the effect when someone dies. Going forward, we have 5 EP per turn. She will then give a defense boost that decreases damage taken by 15% every turn, and a defense up of 5% damage reduction for the whole fight that triggers 3 times, multiplicatively. She has a 40% damage reduction at all times, And by the end of a turn, she recovered HP, and a maxed Cordelia was healing for me around 2000. That's right. So she is very good for defense support, and there's more. She's an overdrive specialist. Let's start talking about skill 3. Crystal Jail. It's a single target attack with piercing code that would then buff all surviving allies' will by 40% on max level, and then grants end of turn OG Gouge of small effect for 2 turns. That will give you 15 points for 2 turns, to total of 30, but share it. And if you use it twice, you can actually give 30 points every turn. The skill itself is not that strong, it's just double S power. And you still have an Ice Trust skill 1 that buffs 25% on max level and gives just 5 per turn in 2 turns. So even if you don't have any external EP battery and she has to cycle between Crystal Jail and Ice Trust, you're going to give a total of 20 OG points per turn. But if you have the max potential and can keep using Crystal Jail, you're going to give 30 points of OG Gouge just by the skill alone. But remember, we said that chance for counter allows you to get 5 OG points when you are hit. Okay, some bosses are attacking like 6 times in a turn even, and we have characters like Joe, for example, that gets 45 points of OG Gouge already. And sometimes we have other characters that can give 15 points, and you get even more by being hit. This helps some overdrive specialists that attack more on overdrive to get into it every single turn. With Cordelia, it's possible. She also combos super well with Hulk, that has another way to give OG points, and he can give as much as 30 points as well via his leader effect. As you can see, it can trigger 2 times, 15 points of OG Gouge when attacked. So, Hawk is a meta unit, and they combo well. You can also combo her together with Fornews, because she is a code specialist. They can actually benefit from each other. Your Cordelia will be attacking and applying defense boost, recovering BP, self-healing, and will improve her damage and also self-buffs. So, it is easy to use her, but I believe that she is here to compete for the Shirei slot, and she's not really better than Shirei. Shirei can decrease damage taken by 50% just by use of skill 3, while also giving attack boost, end of turn recovery, and he can also give 15 points of OG Gouge. But Shirei does not attack. If you are in a party that needs to attack to get extra effects, well, sometimes Cordelia will be better. Shirei still has his gimmick where if someone dies, you will be protected for damage, and it can happen even 3 times per battle. So you use Ray of Hope to protect that character, and Shirei has the best way to revive people. So Cordelia tries to have a mechanic for people that skip it Shirei for whatever the reason, and I believe that it's probably the best Shirei replacement in a current game. But they can still use it together if you want, but Cordelia is essentially weaker. A very useful character nonetheless. Because of chance for counter, Cordelia can also replace some very interesting units that people have been using, for example, Sirius. Sirius will buff people's status when he gets hit, and that was actually pretty good. As you can see here, when you're being attacked by skill attacks, you buff Endurance. When you attacked by spells, you're gonna buff Will. Then we got other characters, for example, Bear, that is a very good one as well. But those characters need to be attacked to buff the party. And even Emperor can buff, but they have to be hit. In this new setup, you will apply the defense support for everyone. If they get hit, they will be buffing Endurance and Will. Well, any of these strategies will actually work, but Cordelia is a different type of support, specializing on overdrive, but can also give you Endurance and Will buff when attacked. So if you don't need to counter specifically, for example, Cordelia will suffice in most setups. There's no need of inheritance, but you can get something from her past 2 styles. For example, there is Bad Dance, that you could use it once in a fight, and for 5 turns you're going to buff your Love, Charisma, HP, and BP when attacking. And she also casts an SGR Intelligence, Love, and Charisma buff by use of the skill. Or you can also inherit Fierce Rabbit Pierce from her bunny style and apply Moralidade Medium for 3 turns. So she can use it from time to time to replace skill 3. But I don't think anything here really matters. She wants to be an OG specialist, and to be so good on that, you have to use skill 3 every turn, or then skill 3 and then skill 1. Cordelia is a very good character in my opinion. Does not beat Sheree, but receives a 4.5 in my new grading system. And if you want, she's skippable. The last one is Will. And Will is a support character, but they buffed his intelligence now to give more damage. 133 is okay. 91 agility could be better. He does have just 97% endurance to you, but very good defensive passes that we'll get into it. He starts the fight with 12 BP. He then grants elemental attack blessings for heat. When you use heat attacks, you can apply a defense boost to yourself that decreases damage taken by 10%, 2 turns and stack, and will also buff your endurance and will by 20%. There's no limit to this. If your character attacks multiple times, he's going to just keep getting more and more effects. When he is attacking, he always chases with Flame Hell. Flame Hell is his skill number 3. This is a deep power attack that hits 3 times with heat. If you are using as a command, it's 12 BP cost. Can instant kill with low chance, but we should not care too much about this. And grants the user a heat attack boost for each hit. The heat attack boost is 35% as a command and 30% as a chase. So if you use this skill yourself and you chase with it, you're gonna get 6 heat attack boost. So each new hit will do more and more damage. Besides, by the end of a turn, he gets 2 extra BP for a total of 5 per turn. He also self-heals for another 400, and he grants Super Screw Guard. He himself decreases damage taken at all times by 30% and gives a 30% damage reduction for everyone when everyone is alive, and will also improve damage potential for everyone by 10%. He then has another 30% damage reduction and a 40% damage potential. As you can see, 3 layers of defense with Will. So even with just 97% endurance and will, he's not going to receive much damage, but that low will could be a problem if the enemy has ailments, but I don't think it will be right now. He also has Flame Trio, skill number 1, that is a single target attack with C power and buffs surviving allies intelligence by 25% on max level. Very useful skill since he is just for damage. And then Flame Bullet, it's something that you're going to use on the start of a fight. It can only be used once and will then grant all surviving allies a recover BP when using heat attacks. There's no limit to this, so again, if your attack has heat, you can just get multiple BP recovery if your character has multi-attacks. And then even Will himself will benefit from it, because he attacks twice with heat. He's 5 BP per turn, and then becomes actually 7 because of this skill. And then it will actually make it easier to keep using Flame Hell. If you have other characters in the party that also gives him BP batteries, it will be much better to keep casting Flame Hell if possible. But if you can't keep up using Flame Hell every single turn, it's okay to use Flame Trio, because this at least buffs intelligence, and you're still gonna chase with Flame Hell. As you can see, Will gives 3 different effects for hit squads: BP generation, defense boost, but it's not an AoE defense boost, it's just a self-defense boost that is a much worse version than for News 1, for example, that gives a defense boost to everyone when you are attacking with code, as you can see in this part here. So even if you have a character in your party that's not code-based, your code attacker will give this defense boost to everyone. And there are plenty of fire leaders. For example, there is Emerald, and Emerald has heat defense boost as well. And it's the same effect. She then has extra damage, especially if you are using spells. So Emerald and Will work super well together. There are other fire damage specialists and leaders, like Firebringer, that is still an okay damage dealer and debuffer, but it's getting behind with the current meta. That can give you also defense boost, defense ups, and he gives you extra BP when attacking, but only once, status buff, and HP recover. But Firebringer is good because he can give you a chance to evade in some squad. That can be game changing. But I do believe that we still need a better fire leader. None of them offer exactly what Fornews offers right now. So, although Will can fit in some squads, I believe most people will be using him for Remembrance. But on Remembrance, he fits a good meta where he is probably the second best damage dealer. Tatiana is unmatched, but then he can do damage and offer some support. You can also use some inheritances, for example, Song of Soul for his latest style. Will give an attack boost of 15% on max rank for 10 turns, barely any difference, but also end of turn recover around 400 per turn for 10 turns, but cost 10 VP and 3 LP. I don't know if this is good enough. He does have Blazing Blow. This is an AoE blunt and heat attack, 8 PP, but loses 1 LP as well to give a heat up of 15%. But there's also the Seismic Strike Plus from his Christmas style that gives him an AoE stun with medium chance. That's good enough to allow you to stun Road Blocker, because Will has very nice intelligence, even if you need to use Rear Guard Focus, but he does have a very good chance to stun. But nonetheless, nothing is really required. Well, Will is the less impactful of these units, of course, but he does have okay damage and he gives some good support while adding 3 different effects for fire setups. These skills can be used if you have Jo, for example, since she can benefit from all the BP generation and extra effects, but also works with Bertrand if you got him. He also has fire attacks. And then Rich if you summon for his banner, although it's kind of hard to justify pulling for that one, but this is just a spoiler. Because of that, I believe Will deserves a 4 out of 5. Now moving back to the banner image, is this banner worth summoning for? In my opinion, yes. It will receive a Gold Plus award as well. Yeah, I changed my mind because we have 2 characters with 5 grades here, a 4.5 and then a 4 grade. Those are actually pretty good grades for a banner with 4 units. And after this, we'll hardly see those till we get to Romancing Saga 3 banners. We'll be seeing a lot of 3 character banners. So there's a lot of value to summon for a damage dealer that is also a tank for the whole party without needing to do anything like covering or taunting. Cordelia gives a lot of OG points and she can also be used as a replacement for Sheree. Johan is an extremely powerful damage dealer that also has a gimmick that makes Kihachi squads even better, and Will is a good club user for support, and we will not get so many club users right now, and also makes Jo, Bertrand, and even Remembrance easier. Because of that, I pull it and you got all the characters in 13 pulls. But that's my opinion. What is yours? Please say here in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this. Please subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you soon in the next one. Goodbye.